Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is finally out. I got a good chunk of the game done over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Claire_Fluffle. Of course, that's Claire with a K. And I'll be streaming the game again at some point today. I don't know, maybe when this video uploads. Let's go with that. When the video is uploaded, I'll be streaming. I like it. If you're not watching the video when today equals today, I don't know, you can give it a like, comment, and ring the notification bell after subscribing to be notified whenever I upload. Yeah, I like it. Sounds good to me. So, similar to what I did for Sonic Frontiers and Fire Emblem Engage, it's time for my first impressions of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. My thoughts could get better, they could get worse, I've got no clue. But what you clicked on this video for was to find out what do I think of the game right now. I've been playing a lot of the original recently, between my own casual playthroughs and ability solo speedruns. Check them out, by the way! And now that I've 100% completed the normal mode, finished the, mild spoiler warning, Magolor mode, platinumed all of the challenge stages, cleared the arena, and finished most of Merry Magoland, I can say that my thoughts on the game are complicated. Let's address the elephant in the room first. While I know people new to the channel are going to find their way here, hi you guys, I love you guys too. For the channel familiars, I'll get this point out of the way very early, just for you guys, because I love you guys too. No, this game does not have online, aside from Samurai Kirby 100 and Magolor's fun facts. Samurai Kirby 100 seems to actually be even worse than I thought it was going to be, since, from what I can gather, you can only actually play one match a day, and everything after that, until the next day of course, is just you being able to retry against the same group of people that you just tried against. And all of the other fun minigames like Kirby on the Draw from Superstar Ultra, Egg Catcher, Booming Blasters, best minigame ever, Checkerboard Chase, all of those are offline locked. I've talked about this so many times, so I'm gonna keep it brief here, but I hate the lack of online. It's 2023, downright embarrassing for a game not to have online. Not everyone can play offline multiplayer. This actively encourages piracy. All that good stuff, you've heard me say it, my thoughts haven't changed. My thoughts on Merry Magoland, however, have changed a little bit. And hey, what do you know, they've shifted in a slightly more positive direction too. I'm still not thrilled with it, and it's far from perfect, but the devs did a good and actually gave the minigames some single-player merit. See, every minigame has between 7 to 9 missions to clear, and you're rewarded for clearing missions, and playing the minigames in general, with stamp tickets. Clearing these stamp tickets will unlock masks for you to use in the main game. For the most part, these are just aesthetic changes, so you don't have to worry about crucial content being locked away behind any of these. The missions themselves are actually pretty fun, although how fun they are definitely is going to vary depending on how much you like the games in question. Lucky for me at least, bare minimum, I at least like 9 of them well enough, so the missions overall were very enjoyable. No surprise, Samurai Kirby's missions sucked years off of my life, but the others were a good time. I especially want to talk about the greatest minigame ever made again, Checkerboard Chase, because once you clear it on every difficulty, you unlock Quick Mode, which takes Checkerboard Chase and makes it quicker. This is the best part of the entire package, no questions asked, and the only way that you can change my mind is by reminding me that there's no online for it, because of course there isn't. Oh, but the decision to remove Scope Shot? How dare they? With that said, what about the actual game itself, Kirby's Return to Dreamland? Was it Deluxe did, or did the devs make an oopsie? See, while my thoughts on Merry Magoland are very straightforward, and I can describe my thoughts on the Magolor mode in 1 or 2 sentences, the game itself... Oh, where do I start? Well, okay, I'll start by actually talking about the original. My thoughts on that game are that it is fantastic. So on a surface level, it was going to be a challenge for this to not also be fantastic. And you know what? Hey, on that surface level, yes, Return to Dreamland Deluxe, fantastic. But let's delve a little deeper. And now, once again, I have to question, where do I even start? Okay. The easiest thing to talk about is the music, so we're gonna start there. Largely, it's the same stellar soundtrack from last time, with some nifty sounding echo and reverb added. I like it actually. Some tracks wind up sounding a little better, some wind up sounding a little bit worse. For the most part, they are stuff that I'm on the middle on. It's not substantial enough of a change for me to really get upset by it, so I'm okay with it. I'll take it. It's still a wonderful soundtrack. However, what I will give Return Deluxe a slight edge towards is how they incorporated these scope shot tracks into the levels. I don't want to give too much away to ruin any surprises, but as unhappy as I am that they didn't bring Scope Shot back, I am happy that the music at least got to survive. As for the new tracks, while none of them have had much time to click yet, the music from Magolor's Tome Trackers is easily my favorite. It's just so cozy, I really love it. Since we're on the topic of the aesthetics though, let's talk about the visuals next. To get these 2 points out of the way, I love the outlines, and Day-to-Day's new look is great. Day-to-Day is just a chunky little guy, and I love him, that's easy enough to explain, but the outlines don't really detract all that much from the experience. Things are easier to see. Not that they were hard to see in the original, mind you, but this is still a good call, and it makes the game in general look more stylistic, and in a way that's very different from what made the original look stylistic. The added detail in some areas, like the dark rooms, also look crazy. I love them. Well, good start so far. With all of that in mind, wow, these visuals are an insane downgrade from the original. It isn't the art style, it isn't Day-to-Day, it isn't the frame rate or whatever. To explain, I'm going to talk and also play some footage of the original so you can see what I mean. Unless you're just listening, in which case, good luck. Kirby and everything around them feel alive and part of the scenery. These gorgeous backgrounds, the lighting on every single model and texture, everything just comes together to make it feel like this is a lived-in world. This is a dreamland, and after being away for it for so long, at the time, you're returning to it. This was a big deal for the gameplay, of course, but the visuals making it feel so authentic equals it being an exceptionally better experience, even years later. One that can still evoke that feeling of returning to it. It makes the game feel timeless. And in Deluxe's defense, okay, this released almost 12 years after the original. In that sense, sure, returning to it can feel nostalgic and pretty nice. But the characters do not feel like they fit in with these backgrounds. Frankly, it looks like they're existing on 2 separate planes, and that these backgrounds are just like paintings or something. It does not look good. During my playthrough, I complained a lot about 90 Noon, and it definitely got the worst of it, but there were a fair few instances otherwise, and by a fair few, I mean enough, where I thought the lighting on the characters just looked off. And again, this is not the fault of the outlines. I think they're fine, they help give it a new style, one that looks really good. These visuals could still feel lived in, and the worst part is that sometimes the lighting does actually work, and the game looks even better than the original when it does. But it's not enough. And plus, 90 Noon is the best looking part of the original anyway, so seeing it butchered like this really, really hurts. One area I will admit that I think the visuals are improved, though, are the cutscenes. The clickbait reaction face from Day-to-Day was definitely made a little worse, but otherwise, this is definitely a stylistic step up. And it isn't just the cutscenes looking a lot better too. In the Let Me Explain Everything cutscene, Magolor's font actually changes once the twist happens. That was such a super tiny touch that went such a long way in making the moment feel even better. Without going too deep into spoilers, I also think the visuals for the final fight look really good, maybe even better than the original. So in that regard, yeah, I guess the visuals function. I don't know, baby steps? So with that, the gameplay itself. I'll admit to being a tad surprised to suddenly hear a lot of people saying that the original game has control problems. I don't know, I just never really heard about it until now. And Deluxe definitely feels different from the original, I'll start by saying that. It just caught me off guard a little bit, so to speak. If you do have issues, by the way, with how the original controls, there is nothing wrong with that. I wish I heard people say this before the remake came out, but that's not really your fault. It's more of me not seeing it, I guess. As for my actual thoughts, though, what a surprise, they're complicated. But, believe it or not, I actually think, however small, it is a step up from the original. The changes aren't as drastic as Nightmare in Dreamland or Superstar Ultra. Overall, they just don't equate to as much for me, and that word choice is very important. Please keep that in mind. But what has changed is mostly really nice. I love the run speed being increased. That's probably my favorite of the changes, but other things, like the addition of quickfall and mixing being super streamlined compared to last time, are so nice. The new challenge stages for Sand and Mecha are also super fun, with Sands potentially being my new favorite in this version. And even if it isn't, it would only be second to the item challenge stage. It's really fun. I do think that the Dream Collection has a few that I like a little bit more, but, you know, pick your battles. But let's talk more about the increased run speed. This is such a game changer for me, both for a casual play and as a speedrunner. The latter should be pretty obvious, but even casually, the pace of this game just feels faster. I love the pacing of the original, but even I could admit that overall, this is ever so slightly better. It honestly kind of reminds me when Planet Robobot first came out and I got to experience the faster run speed in that game again. It is an absolute delight. So with that said, why are the controls so slippery? This and the non-existent analog sensitivity were some issues that I originally was actually gonna let slide, since Switch controllers are so notoriously bad. It could just be my controller. But then I heard other people have these same problems, so why is the game so slippery, and why do I start a dash when I just barely tap left or right on my controller? I've always preferred playing games with my analog controls, and even in Star Allies and all of those Switch Kirby spin-offs, this was never once an issue. I also hate that when you land in water, even if you hold up, you still go underwater. In the original, Kirby stayed above the water in that cute little buoy, or however you pronounce it. But here, even if you hold up, you land underwater. It just feels so much less natural. But given everything that I'm talking about so far, I guess natural isn't something that this game wants to be. Actually, that's actually really harsh. Sorry, it was a little mean. I also won't lie though, I do think the game feels a little bit bloated. If you're the type who just plays through the main story of a game one time and doesn't 100% it or whatever, and then just never touches it again, this channel's not for you, sorry. But think about it like this. You have the normal mode with 120 energy spheres to collect, the extra mode with 120 energy spheres to collect, the arena modes, the 9 ability challenge stages to clear in both normal and extra, over 90 missions to clear for the minigames in Merry Magaland, and a Magalore Epilogue with over 20 levels in that mode to clear. If you're absolutely insane, you can also go for Platinum in both the Magalore Epilogue and the challenge stages in both the normal and the extra modes. The original game had the normal mode, the extra mode, the challenge stages for both, and the arenas. That's it. It made for a way more comfortable and replayable experience. This, kinda too much. I was hoping that they would bring the challenge stages back from the Dream Collection, and initially I was very disappointed that they didn't. Then I saw that after 15 hours I was only 60% of the way done, and I went, you know what? Fine. To draw a parallel to a different Kirby game, Forgotten Land was another one that was kinda pushing it with the content, I'm not gonna lie, but in that game, there was so much more variety in what you did that it entirely made up for the fact that the game could at times feel a little bloated. To move on to make sure that this video doesn't feel too bloated, please laugh. I've got gripes with the game, complaints that are far from nitpicks, but the good improvements here are just too good to ignore. While not a total revamp of the original, like the previous remakes were, this is still, overall, a step up, even with the missteps. It's one step forward, one step back, half a step forward, repeats from the start. A bit complicated, but so are my thoughts on the game, ayy. But then, with the main game finished, Magalore Epilogue is unlocked. While I don't want to go too deep into specifics since all that was revealed about this pre-release was the concept, what are my thoughts on Magalore Epilogue? Well, like I said before, I can summarize my thoughts into a sentence or two, and here is that sentence or two. It's phenomenal and probably the best part of Return Deluxe specifically, barring Checkerboard Jades. I wish it lasted a little longer, but if my only issue is that I wanted to play more of it, I can hardly complain. And plus, it being longer could have made it worse anyway, so who cares? What makes it so enjoyable is that same steady sense of progression that you got with ability upgrades in Forgotten Land. Magalore starts out pathetic, but the longer you play, you get magic points that you can spend to make Magalore better. By comboing enemies, you actually get even more magic points, which finally puts the incredible combo system that Kirby games have always had to great use. You start out unable to float even, or levitate in Magalore's case, meaning there is also legitimately tricky platforming in a Kirby game. The mode in general is just filled to the brim with ideas that Kirby games could have taken advantage of, but never really did. It's definitely a mode that I'm eager to play again. I'm just keeping things vague here because, unlike the rest of this video, there are actual things to spoil. The only other part of the game that I've really gotten to at this point is the arena, which sure is the arena. At least to me, very little feels to have changed compared to the original, and that's fine. The arena is fun, and it didn't really need anything to be changed, but I am very interested to get to the true arena. That one's going to be interesting because what are they going to do with the Magalar mode bosses? I'm thinking there's going to be another true arena, like the truest arena or something, but we'll have to wait and see. So with that, what are my final thoughts on my first impressions of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe? Earlier today, I tweeted the following: I just want to love Return Deluxe as much as everyone else. Why is this so hard? Like, yes, I love the game, it's fantastic, but why are its issues so aggravating and non-existent in the original? That summarizes things pretty well. Truth be told, I do think that this is a fantastic game, one that, if you fix a couple of the issues and head online for Merry Magaland if that's required, it could legit become my favorite. I don't know if it would surpass Superstar Ultra, but the blueprints are in plain sight for this to be better than the original, and at that point, I don't know, who is to say if it would surpass Ultra or not? But the fact that a remake, added issues that the original didn't have is just too much for me. In my book, the original is still the better game, one that not only costed less when it came out, but is possible to find for cheaper. Even if you love your corporations who have enough money to last almost 50 years so much that you refuse to pirate, I checked eBay and I saw a copy of the disc by itself going for about $15. That's a steal! With that said, would I recommend Return Deluxe? It's a weird yes, but it is still a confident yes. For all of the problems that I have with it, it's still Return to Dreamland, and Return is my second favorite game in the series, only behind the greatest game of all time. For now, I don't think Deluxe is as consistent as Forgotten Land, but it is still the second best Switched original Kirby game. Well, you know what I mean by original, not counting NSO or anything like that. I highly recommend it, but maybe think about looking at the original before you look at this one. Both games are really good, and I'm telling you, that one's much cheaper. But with that, the video is now over. I have been Claire. Thank you so much for watching, and oh shoot, that's right, I'm streaming this game. Twitch.tv, Claire_Fluffle, Claire with a K. Bye!